Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Woodstock, Georgia, it's time for Cherokee Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to another exciting and informative edition of Cherokee Business Radio. Stone Payton here with you this morning. And today's episode is brought to you in part by our community partner program, the Business RadioX Main Street Warriors, defending capitalism, promoting small business, and supporting our local community. For more information, go to mainstreetwarriors.org. And a special note of thanks to our title sponsor for the Cherokee chapter of Main Street Warriors, Diesel David Inc. Please go check them out at dieseldavid.com. You guys are in for a real treat this morning. First up on Cherokee Business Radio, please join me in welcoming to the broadcast with Cherokee Family Orthodontics, Mr. Jackson Griffeth. How are you, man?
Stone, I am good. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're excited to have you in studio. You and I have come across each other at a couple of these networky gatherings. Anywhere there's free food and beer,
Amen.
Color me there, right?
That's it.
But it's good to have you in studio. What brings you to Cherokee? Why open office here, man?
Man, we were living a beautiful life in Asheville, North Carolina before this, up in the mountains, and we thought we were going to be there forever, And then my wife and I really started having some direction from the Lord last year. We were knowing that we were going to start a practice somewhere. So I finished residency. I'm an orthodontist, finished residency 3 years ago now. And we went to Asheville, North Carolina, worked there. And I was an associate in a great practice there and really wanted to start my own practice, had a vision for how I wanted to run a practice. And wanted to do that. And we really started looking around for where's that going to be. And we were paralyzed. I have a tendency for analysis paralysis. I'll maybe get into that later. But we were paralyzed, not knowing where we would do it. And then when we really started taking the pressure off of figuring out, all right, where are we going to do this startup for the rest of our lives? And thought, where's this next season? Where does God have us in this next season? Woodstock really started coming to light in so many ways. There are a couple things that really drove that. One is that it was an area that we felt like, hey, this place needs a new orthodontic practice. Where we're posting up, there's really not one right really close to it, and there's all kinds of kiddos and adults around who could use help and use some treatment. It had a vibe that we really liked. We love the connectivity of Woodstock and the just promotion of togetherness and how physically it's connected very well. We live just down the street from our practice and from downtown, and we just love the connectivity of that. And then thirdly, my wife's from Marietta, and I'm from Gainesville, and it's a great central spot in between where our parents still are, and we have a 5, 4, and a 2-year-old.
Oh, my.
And so we wanted them to be around their grandparents. And so this is a great spot for us to be able to share them with each of them.
So are we living up to our advanced press? Are you finding the business community and the community in general is embracing you guys as you come in?
Absolutely. It's been robust. The networking events as we have met at have been awesome. I haven't even touched the surface there, I would say. And as we meet more and more people, everybody's just been really supportive. So it's been good. It's been a wilderness year for us in the sense that we left and we bought this building last year and had just ever so slowly made our way to opening next month. And we've had so much support along the way.
So where are you going to be?
So it is on Main Street in about 1.5 miles north of downtown Woodstock. It's on the corner of JJBLO, which is technically Brook Boulevard, but the road that JJBLO Park is on, and on Main Street. So just as you pass the Ace Hardware headed north from downtown, it's the next building on the right.
Oh, fantastic. My hat is off to you. It's my impression that there's a tremendous amount, forget about the heartache and the mental and all that, but just the capital investment to go into an orthodontic practice. I mean, if the bottom falls out of my business, guys, everything you see in this room, I can have in the cab of my truck and be at the house in a half hour. But that must, I mean, surely you and your wife had to have a lot of really heart-to-heart conversations before investing that kind of capital and time and energy and resources. What was that like? Because you mentioned you were already in a practice at that time, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Wow.
So it's a very true statement. I mean, we are heavily invested in Woodstock, Georgia right now. I mean, heavily. And that feels good. It feels like that's the way it should be. I'm a big believer in having skin in the game and whatever you're doing. Mm-hmm. And we have even more than skin. We got the whole body in the game here. But it was a big move. We were living in Asheville when we bought this building. We knew we wanted to be right around this pocket of Woodstock that we're going to be located in, and looked at some different lease options. But then this building was for sale, and we thought, gosh, what a fun spot that would be to be able to practice out of. And so we have no experience in real estate. We have no experience in anything. We bought this building. In the last year, we have learned a lot about real estate and development. And yes, we are investing a ton into it. And so, yeah, you're right. It's not something that we plan to just close up shop in a couple days. You know?
Well, we're all pulling for you. We're going to continue to follow your story. You mentioned early in the conversation running an orthodontic practice your way, the way you want it. Say more about that. What is your way or your vision of how you want this to be done? Yeah.
Well, first thing I'll touch on is just that ownership piece. And so being an owner of a practice, there's so many practices now are corporate owned, and some corporations do things really well, some don't. And so I won't say that's a negative thing, but I do believe the right move for me right now was to own a practice and to build a culture in a practice. Culture is a big piece of what drew me to orthodontics. I think you can have an environment and an atmosphere that is fun and encouraging, and that starts with the team that you build. And so owning that practice, people often ask us, oh, who's your partners? What company are you with? And it is literally just us. And we've just hired our first couple of assistants, and they are going to be just an awesome beginning to the business family. So that's one piece of it, that vision of creating a great employee and ownership culture. And then two, I really believe that we as orthodontists have a great opportunity to be a part of someone's transformation. So if they come to us, sometimes it's parents bringing their kids and the kids don't know what's going on. But a lot of times it's adults, and they're saying, I've always wanted to have a nice smile, and now is my chance. Or even for kids, there's this total transformation that people go through when they are changing from a 7, 8, 9, 10, 12-year-old to a 14-year-old, and to be a part of that is a real opportunity. And so my vision is to have a practice that uniquely encourages the heart, not just taking care of the teeth and of giving a nice smile. Our practice tagline is "Let your soul shine," and I think that in orthodontics, the smile is in my mind the window for someone's personality or for their soul to shine through. And when you have a confident smile, it just shines through brighter and easier, and someone feels more willing to let that shine through. And so, directly speaking, we're gonna treat them well and encourage them, and just treat people like people and not just another mouth in the chair. And then indirectly, one thing that's going to be unique about our practice is that we have a library of resources, an actual physical little library bookshelf in the reception room, but also a collection of resources, summer camps, counselors, various businesses and individuals that we're just going to put before our patients and their families and say, hey, if you're interested in any of these are just some awesome people that we believe can help change your life while you're going through treatment. And some of those are giving us discounts on their products, things like that. But yeah, that's, I would say I've never heard of anybody else doing that. And that's something that I'm really excited to provide.
I think it's great. Now, when it comes to hiring, you have to take into account this different climate culture that you want to build. What was the hiring like?
Yeah, I leaned heavily into Patrick Lencioni, who's a management consultant for learning how to build a good culture. He's got some great books and some other resources. But here's the thing: I from the get-go established some core values in the practice, and really spent an inordinate amount of time on developing these core values and what they are right now. And I know they may change as our team grows, but what they are is it's the acronym is Shaka, the little Hawaiian Shaka hand symbol. But what it stands for is serve like a ninja. So we're looking on the prowl for ways to make people's day. It's to have fun. So enthusiasm is a big maker of a good culture. It's to act like you own the place. And so it's, hey, if you got a challenge or an opportunity to make the place around you better, to make somebody's day better, that's what we're going to do. Is to keep it simple, because I believe whenever business is done simply and techniques and procedures are done simply, it gives us more margin to look that person in the eye and treat them like a human being instead of just being stressed about whatever procedure we're doing. And then it's to always improve. So just to enjoy work and just to always get better. So anyway, my wife and I sent out a video of ourselves to various candidates who we'd found through various means, asking them to send us a video back.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah. And so they sent us a video back answering certain questions that we asked them. And in that way, we really just found some gems. And I think some people were even interested in working for us that wouldn't have been otherwise if we hadn't approached them with that creative method. And then interviewed from there. And honestly, just God's provision and bringing some good people and good timing into our lives that we couldn't have orchestrated. So we're really excited about our first 2 team members.
So how do you get new patients? Is there a sales and marketing aspect to an orthodontic practice, or is it all referral, or do you have to get out there and shake the trees like me and Josh?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Orthodontics is unique because it's not like a dental office where a patient goes to a dentist and that may be the dentist for the rest of their life. Inherently, an orthodontic process is finite. And so people want it to be as finite as it can be, so you start treatment and then you're done with treatment. And so it's an always going need to find new patients. And so, yes, traditionally it used to be only by referrals. And so dentists would send patients to the orthodontist, say, hey, yeah, we respect Dr. Griffith down the street. You should go see him. And that's how patients would find us. It used to be only that way, and you weren't even allowed. It was illegal to advertise.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And so that has flipped quite a bit now. The majority of our patients find us through just direct promotion, advertising, getting our name out there.
Okay.
And then it depends on the community for sure. And we'll discover what Woodstock is like in terms of dentists. A lot of dentists choose to do their own treatment in-house, like Invisalign or something like that, and don't refer as much. And then some say, hey, you know what? We're going to leave that to the professionals. We're going to send everybody. And so it depends. But yes, the biggest thing I would say that we're focusing on is relationships and being a part of community events, getting to know our dental neighbors, and then investing in our patients and asking them to bring more people like them to us.
Sure. So I guess I didn't think about that when I asked the questions, but dentists, those are very important relationships that you need and want to cultivate. I hadn't thought about that. I was thinking in my mind, like reaching the end user consumer with kids that are that age, but you need and want to cultivate those relationships.
That's right.
With other practitioners.
And so that's what we've started with from a marketing perspective. We've been going to go visit the dental offices.
Yeah, and now I've hooked you up with Josh. So your awareness, marketing, credibility, authority, we've checked that box, baby.
Boom.
We got Josh Nelson in the studio as well. And he's coming back to the Business RadioX microphone to share some ideas with us and get us caught up on his work. But I'll send you a bill.
Yeah, thanks. Right now, it just would be on a big pile, so I wouldn't even notice it.
Wouldn't even notice it.
That's right.
Oh, my goodness. So I don't know when you'd find the time trying to get this thing off the ground, but interests, passions, hobbies, pursuits outside the scope of your work. My listeners know that I like to hunt, fish, and travel.
Yeah.
Anything you nerd out about other than orthodontics?
That's right. Well, it'll sound boring, but the biggest thing right now is just trying to be a good dad and a good husband. I got my little ones and my wife. We just had our 10-year anniversary on Friday, and so investing in those relationships is very time consuming. But there's things I love doing. I love being outside. It's been 7 years ago now, but I was on American Ninja Warrior in 2017, and that style of just getting out and finding fun things to play on is still my jam. Here in Woodstock, I love to mountain bike, so I'm thankful for our Blankets Creek and Old Rope systems. And so those are the big things.
You just never know, do you? American Ninja Warrior, how cool is that?
It was awesome.
Yeah. That is fantastic. All right, man, let's make sure that our listeners have the coordinates, where the shop's going to be and when and how they can reach out to you, whatever is appropriate and helpful for you.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to spread the word. And the details are, again, our location is, and our name, actually, I'll start with that, is Cherokee Family Orthodontics. There's a lot of Cherokee around. There's Cherokee Dental. There's Cherokee Orthodontics. Various things. Sorry for the confusion. We go by CFO for short. So our building is located on Main Street in between Ace Hardware and Pampered Beauty Bar and Spa. It's right across the street from the Bell Industrial Park. On Main Street, a lot of people have been noticing it's been under renovation. We just painted it a dark blackish grayish color, and so that's where it is. Our website is CherokeeFamilyOrthodontics.com. We Instagram CFO Smile. We're doing fun stuff on there, and we are currently scheduling patients. And so whether that be coming to me in that office over in Ackworth in Kennesaw that I'm able to see people at now, or in our building late October, appointments can be scheduled by calling, texting, going online. And then again, just unique factors. What we got going on right now is that we're a family-owned practice. We are absolutely, like I said, heavily invested in your success as a patient. Our results are going to the dentists, and the dentists are going to say, "Yeah, I like that work," or "No, I don't like that work. I'm not going to send anymore." So we're very invested in great results and a great experience, and we do a lifetime guarantee on our treatment also.
Oh, wow.
And so that's something that I saw happen. People would have a kid would not recognize the value of their treatment. They'd come back 6 months later, never wore their retainer, boom. And mom and dad are faced with $3,000 to fix it. We'll retreat that kid for free. So, those are kind of our two big things that we want everybody to know. And the space is going to be beautiful. So excited to invite people into it.
Well, they are two big things, and really looking forward to seeing the space. Congratulations on the momentum, man. We're going to keep following your story.
Thank you. Thanks so much for letting me spread the word. We're very excited about it and confident it's going to be a good service for folks.
My pleasure, man. Hey, how about hanging out with us while we visit with our next guest?
I would love to learn more about Josh.
All right. Next up on Cherokee Business Radio this morning, please join me in welcoming back to the Business RadioX microphone with Nelson Elder Care Law, the man himself, Josh Nelson. How you been, man?
Absolutely amazing, Stone. I appreciate you having me on. So excited to be with Jackson here. You know, we just celebrated 10 years here on Town Lake. And so to see somebody that's just getting off to a good start and sounds like he has such a good foundation, you know, funny enough, we use core values in our hiring. We use the entrepreneurial operating system, and it's a real big impact to make sure you have the right team. So I'm really excited to see what Jackson does over here at, Cherokee Family Orthodontics. But even more importantly, I got a 12-year-old that just got that referral, so we're definitely going to have to connect after this.
That's great. I'll be darned. See there? I'm the mega connector. I'm that guy in Cherokee. No, I'm glad you guys are gonna get together. So I got new questions around trust, estate planning, and all that stuff. But let's just for anybody that the two people in Cherokee County that don't know about you guys, just give them a little bit of an overview, mission, purpose, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the biggest thing we do at Nelson Elder Care Law is help people plan for their senior years. Elder law is a little bit of a misnomer. I have plenty of clients over 90, 7 clients over 100, and they still tell me they aren't old. So I get that nobody's ever going to be like, I'm elder. But really where our focus is people traditionally 45 to 55 and up that are trying to make sure that as they go into retirement, they have all their ducks in a row. A lot of times our kids look to us as the ones that should just have everything taken care of because we taught them so much. We want to make sure that you can kind of live out that responsibility for your children. And then unfortunately, a big part of our practice is people that haven't prepared. You go talk to your parents or your grandparents and you think that they got all the ducks in a row. And all of a sudden they get hit by a diagnosis like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, a stroke. That's what we call crisis cases. And unfortunately, that does make up a significant part of our business, but we got 10 years experience handling those things. We treat it sort of like Jackson's talking about from that holistic experience. It's not just about coming in and getting legal paperwork. We want to make sure you have the right tools. And a lot of times those right tools is a budget, a plan, a referral to a placement agency, working with what your options are for care, knowing how the state government can help support caregivers coming into your home, because we acknowledge that most people want to stay at home. But if you get so sick that you can't, we're happy to help you transition too.
So this is very right in my field of vision right now. My folks, I grew up in Pensacola, Florida. Mom and Dad moved up about 9 months ago. They live 2 minutes away, right down here off of Dupree, 82 and 84. And my brother's coming up this weekend to hunt, but we also are going to have some conversations about things that we should be mentioning to Mom and Dad. Do we need to have that family meeting? Is there a 3-ring binder in Dad's office desk drawer? Do we need to talk to somebody? And I got to believe we're not the only ones that have probably already put it off longer than we should have. So any counsel advice you have about how to approach the conversation, misconceptions that because Rusty and I may have some preconceived notions about lay it on us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the normal avatar or kind of what our clients are going through. What a lot of people don't realize is that often we'll meet with like you and your brother or just you, and then you kind of relay to your brother. That's why we offer free visits with our legal team, because we understand getting mom and dad on the ball might be a very serious conversation. I would argue that instead of you just barging into that, you get some help from us to be able to say, how do we phrase that conversation? How do we structure that conversation? Because your parents are going to be somewhat a little blown away whenever, we don't want them feeling ambushed whenever all of a sudden you and your brother sit down after hunting and they're like, hey, mom and dad, we need to do this, or I want to handle your bills. No dad and no mom are really going to love that kind of conversation. So how do we ease into it? How do we make sure that they know that we're not taking any power away from them? We're just helping them get everything structured. So in case something does, kind of come their way, you guys know where it is, you know how to step in. And so a good portion of our clients actually come from their kids stepping up whenever somebody has it. And like I said, the problem is you've seen somebody at work, you've talked to somebody at church who they thought their parents had this stuff in a row. They thought they had that 3-ring binder buried somewhere. And then unfortunately something happened and we couldn't find it. So like even with us, whenever we do a plan for somebody, we give everybody PDFs they can keep on their phone that are actually just as legally valid as like the formal paperwork in that binder. So say that even though your parents live 2 miles away, you get that call that dad was in a car accident or he went up to Northside for some reason, rather than you having to drive over to his office and find that paperwork, you can go straight to the hospital, have it on your phone, have full authority just from that PDF.
So I got to believe that there are more than a few misconceptions, preconceived notions that are just off track, that just people walk in and they don't quite have the right frame for this. Do you run into that?
I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there, and part of it's because the rules change state by state. So especially if you moved from like North Carolina, like Jackson did, Asheville's beautiful. I love it over there, but their rules are a lot different than they are here in Georgia. And so you get somebody that moves from a different state and they assume those rules moved with them. in Georgia can be very different. A lot of our rules are super beneficial. You just got to play by what our guidelines are. And so like just as recently as July here in Georgia, we changed a really cool thing for homeowners that allows them to be able to skip probate, which is the legal process of transferring stuff from somebody who passed away to their loved ones, without a trust, without doing any kind of like weird stuff. The big advantage of that is it lowers the cost of estate planning significantly. So a lot of people are scared to even talk about a trust because they know it's expensive. It is. But now our legislature has this really cool thing called a transfer on death deed that allows for you to be 100% owner of your property. And if something happens where you pass, you can designate who it goes to. So think of it sort of like a beneficiary on your IRA or a beneficiary on your bank account. Those people don't own anything while you're alive, but then whenever you pass, now all of a sudden they own it without having to go through court. This is really cool because what we see a lot of people do that's really uncool, really silly if you think about it, is add their kids to their deed. And that's a big mistake. Not only do you have to get them to sign off if you ever want to move or refi, but if they ever get divorced, they ever get creditors because of hospital bills, now all of a sudden they're part owner in your house. And so this allows our legislature to say, hey, if something happens to you, let's give it to your kids without having to have those complications during their life.
So you've been at this a minute. You've been, what are at this point in your career? What are you finding the most rewarding? What's the most fun about the work for you these days?
I think growing the team. So I think Jackson's off to an amazing start by making sure that he's cultivating that right away. You know, last time I was on here, we kind of spoke about, you know, I've been doing this for 10 years now. And whenever I first started, I probably didn't have the team right. I came from more of a logistics background. So it was kind of like get the systems, get the processes down, and then just get people to work the systems. And what I found was we get a lot better results if we get really, really qualified people. And the way that we say qualified is that they meet our core values and that they really, really care about the individual across from them. So making sure that the schedule is open enough that we don't need to charge billable hours. Whenever you come in, you don't get charged for the time. You pay a flat rate that you know up front before you even get started. And then if it takes more time, it takes more time. And we want to make sure that you're really comfortable. We expect that this is the kind of thing that's really only done once in your lifetime. This isn't the kind of thing you need to come in every 3 years, 5 years, something like that. Once you get into your 50s, this stuff's pretty much sorted. Your decisions aren't going to change drastically. We can always adjust things and make changes, but for the majority of our families that we help, they're going to come in, do this once. We want to make sure that it's a relationship and not just a transaction. And so I think just like you, Stone, the part I love most about my job is meeting people, learning about them, being able to solve their problems. You know, for so many attorneys, whenever somebody comes in, they kind of have this curse of knowledge. They're saying, you know, oh, you have a problem with a nail. Let me hit it with a hammer. And what we like to say is like, what are you really trying to fasten together? What are you building with that nail? How do we make sure that if something goes right in your life, you're prepared, but also if something goes wrong, if life throws you a curveball, how do we make sure that that's not impacting your relationships? You know, thinking about an adult caregiver for their dad or their mom, how do we make sure that that caregiver has a reprieve or relief so that they're still seen as a wife, a husband, a son, a daughter, and not just a caregiver? The most depressing parts of my role are whenever you get somebody that comes in and they've been a caregiver for their parent because we feel like we have that duty, but it becomes a burden. And all of a sudden our parent or our spouse starts looking at us like the help rather than as a kid or a spouse. And really over the years, we've been able to fine tune how we make sure that the money's there, that the resources are there, and that the caregiver's setting the right boundaries before it gets to that point.
And you're part of a group of professionals in this whole arena, ACAP, Adult Children of Aging Parents. And I've talked to some other folks like in the leadership of that. But speak to that, the mission, what compelled you guys to get involved?
Yeah, like I said, we're always out here trying to build relationships. And so that is definitely a non-profitable venture for us, but it feels like it fills our heart, right? So like Jackson was saying, you know, let your soul shine. How do we make sure that at the end of the day, we're sleeping amazing. We go home and we can tell our families, like true families, we did great work today. And part of that's making sure that people are equipped with the tools. Most people that are an adult caregiver, they don't have time, man. Like, the reason that it's as late as it is because we know you got to get off work. You got to get the kids fed. You got to make sure that your parents taken care of. And then you can run over and spend some time for us. And the coolest thing about ACAP right now is it is just 100% actionable tools. So a lot of times you go to like a seminar or a speaking event and you get kind of riled up and you're like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And then you like on your way home are thinking like, well, what am I actually going to do different? What can I take from this? And ACAP right now is just tool after tool after tool that you can go execute on. So really cool.
And you guys don't have like Margarita Mondays or Taco Tuesdays, I don't guess, but you do have a regular gathering, and it's for people like me and Russ. Is that accurate, to go and learn stuff? Absolutely.
So it's on Thursday evenings. It's not every Thursday. It's about every other Thursday. Sometimes it's only once a month, depending on who's coming in. It's over the church kind of on where Barrett and Canton Road run into each other. And the biggest part about it is that it helps people come in, get the information, and get out. We do have, little food and drinks and stuff like that, but that's not why you're spending your time with us. We don't have the Jimmy Buffett margarita machine in the back. We're just trying to make sure that you're comfortable enough to focus, that you aren't coming in hangry, that you're not drowning, coming dehydrated while you're out there. During the summer, that church is warm, so definitely water. But the biggest thing is making sure that people have the tools they need and that they can go execute. Even with a lot of like support giver groups or caregiver groups, or especially with like cognitive impairment support groups, it turns into a good way to counsel each other. Sometimes it turns into like a complaining session if it's not moderated well.
Yeah.
But even the best ones, unfortunately, don't really walk out with like, here's the thing you can do today to get yourself 4 hours of caregiving for free. Here's the thing you can do today to make sure that you're prepared for getting the hospital bed in if your spouse is immobile. Here's how you actually get practical training on how to lift somebody heavier than you off the floor. Here's how you have the conversation about you've fallen 11 times this week and the fire department said they're calling Adult Protective Services if you do it again. Like, these are the things that we're going to cover and make sure that you're super equipped with. Nobody's allowed to sell you anything whenever you go to these meetings. And so it's just like a Q&A, kind of being able to say, how do we get the information? You bring your problems and we got 12 people in there in the industry. They'll give you solutions. It's really cool.
It seems like a marvelous resource. It really does. All right, let's talk about me for a minute. It's my show. I'm thinking, because we sort of are there, and I'm trying to get. If you want to get some free coaching and consulting, guys, get yourself a radio show, because that's what I'm about to do right here. But no, all kidding aside, just kind of walk us through, like Russ and I. One of the early steps might be to go to one or two of these meetings. Have a conversation with you. Just walk us through, like, if you could paint the ideal journey for me and Russ to get mom and dad and us set for the next few years. Walk us through that.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is, because they're not under care right now, because they're not sick or diagnosed with something right now, it's information gathering at this stage. And that's where most people should start, because then it's a lot easier to do any legwork you need to. It's a lot easier to get the facts straight. And so anybody can come in Nelson Elder Care Law. We have an office right here over off Town Lake, as well as one over off Dallas Highway in Cobb. And what we'll do is sit down with you for an hour with a member of our legal team and make sure that you at least have the facts. We're not trying to make any decisions for you. We're trying to educate you well enough that you can make your own decisions. And especially for you and Russ, it probably starts with, how do we talk to mom and dad about this?
Yeah.
How do I approach dad and say, you're doing great, man, but let's just go ahead and get something in place that it's not a burden on mom if something happened to you. That's usually a resounding conversation for dad,
What a great frame. That's the right frame for my dad. I guarantee you it is.
Compared to going and saying, Dad, I want to be able to pay your bills, put me on your bank account, something like that. Like he's going to be like, heck no. Right. And so that's really where it starts. There's so much misinformation, especially like in Georgia. A will doesn't even skip probate, which is very mind blowing to people.
Whoa.
Tonight I'll speak to over 150 people for a senior center seminar. And at that seminar, one of the questions I always love to ask is, who has a will? Raise your hand. And then what does a will do? And you'll just see hands drop so fast. We spend our whole lives being told we need this thing. None of us really know what it's doing. And then you don't find out that now you got to go through this crazy court process. Probate, just as a general ballpark, guys, costs about 3% of your stuff. So like if you have a $300,000 house, probate costs $9,000. Like that's kind of crazy,
man. And a bunch of time too, right?
It takes at least 6 months in Georgia, usually 9 to 12. The biggest thing is the information. And so I'd say for you and your brother, making sure that you get educated. A lot of this stuff is very inexpensive to do. So like our legislature does some really cool things with powers of attorney and medical power of attorney that we call advanced healthcare directive that you can get for very, very inexpensive. And that makes a world of difference so that even if your parents aren't on board for doing like a full plan right now, they at least have the things in place that if they get hit by a curveball of life, you have the legal authority to come in and help. And that makes a world of difference. Can you imagine if something happened to like, your mom and your dad's just devastated after being with her for so many years? Maybe he's not the right one to be the decision maker because it just hits us emotionally, right? I mean, if she's going through something nuts, is he under so much stress that being the caregiver, being the spouse, and being the decision maker is too much? It's worth having a conversation. Or maybe it's something where one of your parents is starting to get a little soft cognitively. Like we're not saying that they have to move somewhere. Like we're not saying they can't drive anymore, but maybe it's that their, decision-making isn't quite what it was whenever they were in their 50s. Maybe it's starting to get a little soft. How do we step in and say, Dad, you're going to be 100% the decision maker for Mom, but let me be co with you. Let me just say that the two of us together are going to help. I want to do this as a way to allow you to be the great husband that you committed to being, rather than saying, let's go in and I want to be the decision maker for Mom. Like those conversations are so nuanced, and a lot of people, I would argue, need help before they do it well. And the problem is if you jump in and try and do it on your own before you have some guidance, you can really burn bridges. There's so many fears as we get older of, they're going to put me in a home. They're going to try and steal money. They want their inheritance early. It's all about the money. And it's really not for most kids, but just the way they phrase it comes off as that. And so we want to make sure that everybody's really well equipped to have those conversations in a way that has a positive outcome. Because once the parents kind of shriek back, once they're like, no, we ain't doing this, reviving that conversation can be pretty hard.
I'll bet. Man, I'm so glad that I asked. Thank you. And Russ and I are going to try to follow your counsel.
Love to.
Yeah. So I was
Bring him in on it. We'll do the whole thing on the radio show. We'll just get
we'll just do a live. That's actually a cool idea if you're up for it. I love it.
It's awesome.
I asked Jackson a little earlier, and I'll ask you, and you're at a little different point in your life probably, so maybe you don't have a house full of kids you're having to tend to. Outside the scope of your work, man, anything you nerd out about? What do you like to do?
So funny enough, I've been trying to lose some weight, so I'm down over 60 pounds for the year.
Yes, congratulations.
The big thing has been not Ninja Warrior for sure, but I met Joe DeCina, the guy that runs Spartan races, which are like these like 5, 10K or 21K events that have like rope climbs and wall climbs and stuff like that. And he was nice enough to allow me to go run as many events as I want. And so he said, I want to support your weight loss journey. Really, really cool guy. I mean, his business does over $50 million a year to run those races. And he was like, if you're willing to put in the time, at the time I was 350 pounds. And he was like, you and any of your buddies want to come. So last November, the firm actually got over 100 people to sign up and go
Yes.
run the one down in
That's
Conyers.
amazing.
I love it.
On October 5th, I'm going to go run one in Nashville, which is really cool. And so that's been taking up a decent bit of my time. It needs to take up more. But then the other thing for me is I love restoring old cars. So like pre-World War II cars, I love going on the weekends or the nights and getting my hands dirty. I got a little shop that I work on. I got a 1937 Cadillac that I'm putting back together right now that was just a rust bucket. And those things are actually really out of style right now in cars because most of the people from that generation are kind of aging out of driving. And so love being able to do that kind of stuff. And I will give 100% credit to my daughter's mom. She does all the hard parenting. I just get to helicopter in and do the fun stuff. So like it's Saturdays going to the jumpy place or doing fun things like that. That's her mom is an angel. So I appreciate her covering most of that for me where I just could come do the fun stuff.
So restoring the cars, is this something you've been doing for years and years? Is it a new passion?
Yeah. I've done it for over 20 years now.
Oh, wow.
And,
Isn't that what makes, is it a car that's 20 years old is a classic?
oh, let's not go into that. That means things from like the 2000s are like classics. I want to feel really old.
I was going to say, now you're a classic.
What's funny though is a lot of the car prices kind of follow the cycle of whenever the car gets to be like old enough where the guys that wanted it at 16 are in their 40s now.
Right.
They go to ridiculous prices. So a lot of those like Japanese little sports cars, like there was like a 99 Honda Civic that just sold on Bring a Trailer for like $60,000. And that was probably a $15,000 car brand new. So like some of that's just wild. I'm in luck because I like the pre-World War II stuff, and those cars are getting cheap. A couple of years ago, it was all those muscle cars that were super expensive, like an old Camaro or an old GTO. And just because those guys are now getting to where they're not driving cars without AC anymore, those things are starting to get cheap. But those old World War II, like pre-cars, they don't have AC. They're small, so I'm a big guy. Don't fit in them well. Like even my daughter can't ride in the 37 because it doesn't have safety glass. So like you don't think about it, but if you're ever in an accident, that glass just turns into knives. Like it's
wow.
So we don't let her ride in some of the old stuff. But I got like a 46 Jeep Willys that's
and you go show them off after you get them all dolled up? Do you go show them off?
I'm not a big car show guy, but I love to go use them. So we'll actually go up, like over in Asheville, there's an amazing hotel called the Grand something. It's
The Grove Park Inn?
Grove Park Inn.
Yes.
So close enough.
It's a grand
I know
place.
that's a good one. That's a grand place for
And
sure.
so love driving up there through the mountains and stuff. There's a bunch of groups that you can find through different like online things where you'll get together on a Saturday, wake up at like 5:36 and then just go roll these cool old cars through the mountains. Especially this time of year, man, it's so crisp and beautiful in the mornings. North Georgia has so much to offer us. That if you just get out there and enjoy it, man, it's just a amazing way to spend a weekend.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm so glad I asked. You've covered a ton of information, but just to kind of wrap it up, maybe a couple of the really important pro tips for the Stones and Russes out there, just things to be thinking about, don't do, a first couple of steps. And look, guys, the number one pro tip is reach out and have a conversation with Josh or somebody on his team, but let's leave them a little something they can chew on.
I think, especially for your listeners on Business Radio X, the biggest thing I would say is a little different than our primary practice area, but it plays right in. Make sure that if you're a small business owner, if you have something going on where you're the sole person, or especially if you have a team that relies on you, that your operating agreement, your articles of incorporation, something has a succession plan in it. It doesn't need to be some like crazy thing. It can just be a paragraph that you add into those membership articles that says, if I get hit by a bus, my wife, my partner, somebody can step in and still have access to the bank account. What we're seeing a lot is a lot of people will like register their LLC or their company with the Secretary of State, and that's all they do. There's no actual like articles or membership agreement or anything anywhere. And the problem then is if you pass suddenly or you get sick suddenly, your whole business stops because somebody has to be able to access the checking account. Somebody has to be able to access cash flow. Somebody has to be able to run things. Just making sure that you have that paragraph in your LLC or your articles of incorporation to make sure that somebody can do it, whether that be your spouse, your brother, whoever. That's where we're seeing people, even with, good sized small businesses, come up short right now. And whenever that stuff gets stuck in probate, it's really expensive because trying to cash flow that thing while it's going through the court system is nearly impossible for most companies. You think about like the run rate, even on like Jackson's business for, the mortgage payment on the building, keeping the staff going, who's going to be his coverage orthodontist. I'm sure that somebody has to be licensed to come in. Like, who is that person?
Right.
Like, just sitting down for an hour and making that plan on the back of a sheet of paper is going to change your family's life if something ever happens to you. And that's really where on the probate side of my business, we've been seeing people just get hit with a hammer. We just had a lady who had a small Airbnb business, but it grew to, over $1.3 million and stuff. And then nobody could find the paperwork.
Oh, jeez.
It's like, uh-oh. For one little paragraph, one little like 5-page membership agreement would have cost her less than $500. She could have saved a bunch of money. Cause again, whenever that goes through probate, you're looking at like 3%.
Wow.
There's a blue 3-ring binder in my office closet at the house. As soon as we go off the air, I got to go take a look at that thing. Right. Oh my goodness.
So like I said, for the normal stuff that we do, if you're thinking about your spouse, your parents, stuff like that, definitely reach out. But just as a nugget there, guys, especially for small business owners, we are just seeing a lot more people with everything planned for because they usually have like a financial advisor, an estate planning attorney, stuff like that. That part's golden, and they forget about the business.
Mm. All right. What's the best way for our listeners to tap in whatever coordinates make sense? I just want to be able to connect with you guys.
Absolutely. NelsonAutoCareLaw.com is always a good one for us. You can Google us. We'll pop up 678-250-9355. However you want to reach out, we're here to help.
Well, Josh, thanks for coming back, man, and thank you for all the terrific information. Gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure having you both in the studio. Don't be a stranger. I'm quite sincere. Josh will tell you when I say, Jackson, you're welcome to come back, and we want to continue to follow your story. But what a marvelous way to invest a Tuesday morning. You guys are doing important work, and we sure appreciate you.
Thank you, Stone.
Thanks so much. Really excited to see where Jackson grows. I remember 10 years ago kind of being in that spot, and it's scary as all get out. Now on the other side of it, it just feels so cool whenever you look back at all the families you've been able to help.
That's awesome.
All right. Until next time, this is Stone Payton for our guest today and everyone here at the Business RadioX family saying we'll see you again on Cherokee Business Radio.